So, again, classification of Puranas found in Garuda, Padma, Matsya is based on Satvik, Rajasa, and Tamasa, the Guna concept, which is very popularly found in Bhagavad Gita as well. So, Vishnu, Naradiya, Bhagavata are Satvik Puranas, Brahmanda, Brahma, Vaivarta, Markandeya are Rajasic Puranas, and Matsya, Kurma, Linga, Shiva, Agni are Tamasic Puranas. So, whether we should categorize them or we shouldn't categorize them, that is another debatable question. But the categories are found in Garuda, Padma, Matsya. So that is why I have mentioned here. Then another categories that I find is there is a very, very distinct division. And that distinct division in the Puranas often leads to a very strong argument, as in who is supreme. A very common and very strong argument. Who is supreme? Shiva? Vishnu? Devi? Who? So Shaiva Puranas talk about Shiva being supreme, and that is how Shiva created the whole universe, and he is Sadashiv and he is always existent. Vaishnava Puranas glorify Vishnu as a supreme personality, how Vishnu, Krishna, created the entire Brahmanda. And Shakti Puranas talk about how uh, Devi created the three Devas, and from three Devas, the whole Brahmanda is created. So I would like to tell one very interesting story of Bhuvaneshwari. So once Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma were fighting, and because they were fighting and they were not aware what to do and what is to be done, so Bhuvaneshwari sends a chariot and takes them to Manidvipa, where they see Bhuvaneshwari, and on her toenail they see the whole entire creation. And then Bhuvaneshwari summons the three Shaktis, Lakshmi, Gauri, and Saraswati, and gives them that Brahma, this is your Shakti, Shiva, this is your Shakti, Vishnu, this is your Shakti, and now you create and you take care of maintenance and you take care of the annihilation, destruction. And that is how the supremacy of Devi can be established in the Shakta Puranas. Unfortunately, there are only two Puranas which talk about the goddess, Markandeya and Devi Bhagwat. Of course, there are other minor Puranas like Kali Puran and all, but in Maha Puranas, Markandeya Puran and Devi Bhagwat Puran talk about Devi as supreme, and Devi Bhagwat is somewhere adapted from Markandeya Puran only. Then we have division of Puranas into six classes. Encyclopedic Purana, Garuda, Agni, Narada talk about everything. It's like an encyclopedia. Medicine, Tirtha Kshetram, Vratas, everything is there. Then there are some Puranas which talk about, and also like Garud Puran, Agni Puran, they talk about very minute details. And Tirtha and Vratas are spoken about Padma Puran, Skanda Puran, Bhavishya Puran. So Padma Puran largely talks about different Vratas, like Ekadashi stories from Padma Puran. The story of all the 12 Ekadashis, of all the 24 Ekadashis is there in the Padma Puran. Then there are some Puranas that are set to undergo a lot of revisions, two revisions or more, Brahma and Bhagavata and Brahma Vaivarta. As Bhagavata is said to be a very modern Purana, it is mentioned that it underwent multiple revisions. Then we have historical group of Puranas like Brahmanda and Vayu, which talk about cosmology, talks about history, and talks about many other things. Then we have sectarian group, Linga, Vamana, Markandeya, they talk about specific sect, a specific area, a specific group. And then Varaha, Kurma, Matsya are kind of revived Puranas. They were old, extinct, and they were revived later. They are very short in nature, Varaha, Kurma, Matsya. And we talk about Padma, Skanda, Bhagavata. They are Devi Bhagavata. They are very large Puranas with lot of shlokas. So now we will talk about contents of different Puranas. So contents of different Puranas. The first Purana I would like to talk about is Padma Puran. So why it is called Padma Puran? Because it is a narrative, or it is the whole story seen by the primordial Padma, the primordial lotus from which Brahma was born. That is why it is called Padma Puran. Padma Puran is about the creation. Before creation, Padma was there, and that Padma sees the entire creation and narrates the different aspects from the creation. It says that Purana is part of Vishnu's body and Padma is the heart. Okay, Padma is the heart. That is why Padma Puran is a very uh, go-to Purana, and it is very important Purana. It has got roughly about 55, 5,000, 50,000, 55,000 verses. Padma Purana has got 55,000 verses, and it has got 7 khandas: Shrishti Khanda, Bhumi, Swarga, Brahma, Patala, Uttara, and Kriya Yoga. And what does Padma Puran talk about? So Padma Puran talks about code of conduct. It talks about Sthala Puran, different pilgrimage guides. It talks about Prayagraj. It talks about Varanasi. It talks about different Tirtha Kshetram. It talks about cosmology, concept of time, how time existed. It talks about different rivers like Narmada, Godavari. It talks about Ganga and different rivers and geography, different mountains. It talks about worship of Vishnu. It is a Vaishnava Puran, so definitely it will talk about how to worship Vishnu, how a Brahmana should be, how a king should be, how a devotee of Vishnu should be. It talks about different seasons and festivals. Most importantly, the Jhulan Yatra festival, Snan Yatra festival is mentioned in Padma Puran. It talks about different vratas, especially Ekadashi, and there are more different vratas for Vaishyas. There are different vratas for kings, and for different classes, there are different vratas that Padma Puran talks about. Then it talks about the story of Tulsi plant and Ekadashi. It talks about how installation of lakes, planting trees. It talks about Ramayana, Krishna Leela, Gita Mahatmya, glories of Bhagavata, Shiva Gita, and concepts on soul and liberation. So there is a character by the name Maitri. How Maitri discusses the concept of soul and afterlife in the Padma Puran. And it has got different quotes and references pertaining to the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, stating that everything is one and Vishnu is the supreme creator. And it also discusses different ethics, hospitality to guests. It discusses all these aspects. Then we have Agni Puran. Agni Puran is said to be one of very old Puranas. It is mostly referred to for construction of deities, construction of temples, and other aspects. Agni Puran is divided into 380 chapters roughly, over 12,000 to 15,000 verses it has. And as I just said, it talks about cosmology, it talks about genealogy, politics, it talks about crime and punishment, art of war, different strategies of war, astrology, different cure of diseases, uh, then code of conduct. It talks about Niti Shastra as well, how a person should behave, how a king should behave. It talks about construction of temples, Vastu Shastra, gemology, grammar, music, poetry, food and agriculture, rituals. It talks about martial arts, local laws, diplomacy, different trees and plants. It talks about curing of diseases of not only humans but also animals, like Gaja Chikitsa, Ashwa Chikitsa, and so on. Then we have Bhagwata Puran. So Bhagwata Puran consists of 18 cantos, 18,000 verses. So Bhagavata Puran, as we already discussed the story, like Vyasa wrote all the Puranas, all the Shastras, and he was upset that I am not happy, I am not satisfied. Narad Muni comes to Vedavyasa and tells him that uh, you've written about everybody, but you've not glorified Vishnu, you've not glorified God. So you need to glorify God. Only then you will be satisfied. So that is how Vedvyasa compiles Bhagavata Puran. And Bhagavata Puran majorly is about, is in the mood of bhakti, is in the mood of devotion. So different schools of Vaishnava schools of thought like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, they work on Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam, again we have Bhagavat Katha, which is narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. We do not have Katha of other Puranas like Agni Puran Katha and Kurma Puran Katha, etc. But Bhagavad Puran Katha is there because it talks about glories of God. It talks about glories of Krishna. So why it is named Bhagavata? Bhagavata, it is named Bhagavata because it is about Bhagavan. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 3, verse 28, it is said, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So Lord Krishna is the Bhagavan. That is how referring Krishna as the supreme God came into place. It talks about different kinds of Vishnus that are present, Garbhadaksha, Stirodaksha and Mahavishnu. And Lord Krishna creates everything from his will. So because it is about Bhagavan, that is why it is Bhagavata. Because it is about Bhagavan. Then contents of Bhagavatam are spread in 18 cantos. It covers the genealogy of Manu, then avatar of Narsimha, Varaha, Kurma, all multiple avatars. It talks about how creation happened. It also talks about the confirmation of Purusha Suktam, which is found in the Rig Veda. And the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, for example, is completely dedicated to the glories and pastimes of Krishna. The last canto of Bhagavatam talks about summarizing the whole Puranas, different Puranas. It talks about the structure of the Puranas. It talks about some future aspects, future kings, and other cantos talk about different stories and instructions that we get, like instruction of Kunti Maharani, instruction of Kapila, instruction of Rishabdev, the first Tirthankara, to his 100 sons. From Rishabdev, Jainism began. He was the first Tirthankara in Jainism. So that is how we can see that everything has evolved from Srimad Bhagavatam somewhere or the other. And Bhagavatam is very close to everybody's heart, and everybody is very aware about Bhagavatam than other Puranas, in comparison to other Puranas. So there are three Puranas which people are generally aware. One is Bhagavatam, Devi Bhagavat, because Durga Saptashati Path and all that people do during Navratri is from Devi Bhagavat again. And Garud Puran, because Shraddha rituals, people recite Garud Puran. So this is a short journey of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then comes Brahma Puran. So Brahma Puran is also known as Adi Puran because it was one of the first Maha Puranas. Okay. So Brahma Puran talks largely about Surya. That is why it is called Saurya Puran, because it largely talks about Surya. Brahma Puran is majorly a compilation of different Sthala Puranas, different Tirtha Mahatmyas. It does talk about Dharma Shastra, geography of earth, temples, pilgrimage, yoga theories, different concepts of devotional worship, genealogy, history, and cosmology. So one of the very important part that we see in Brahma Puran is naming of different continents. So geographic aspect we strongly see in Brahma Puran. So we stay in Jambu Dvipa. So Jambu Dvipa is surrounded by Mount Meru, and it is called Jambu Dvipa because it has got a lot of Jammu or Jamun trees. Then there is Saka. Saka Dvipa is Malaya, Indo-China border, southern China, southeastern part. Then Kusha. Kusha is Iraq, Iran, southwestern corner. Then Palaka. Then Palaksa. Palaksa is the Mediterranean Sea where Pakhara trees are there. It is warm. You can say the Greek lands can be referred to as Palaksa. Then Pushkara. Pushkara is the whole Japan, Manchuria, that area, Siberian area. Then Salmala is the African border. Karuncha is the Black Sea, and Upadvipa. So there are different Upadvipas, the small minor countries and continents, they are mentioned in Brahma Puran. Then we have Brahmanda Puran. Brahmanda Puran is coming from the word Brahma Anda, wherein it is said that the whole creation was in form of an egg. So Hiranyagarbha Suktam of Rig Veda confirms that the creation happened through a golden egg. That is why it is called Hiranya Garbha. Hiranya is golden, Garbha is the womb, the golden womb. So Brahmanda Puran, the word Brahmanda refers the creation of Brahmanda from the cosmic egg. It is got three basic adhyayas. The first bhaga has 38 adhyayas, second is 74 chapters, and third is 44 chapters. Total 156 chapters. It is not a very large Purana. Then contents refer to yoga, philosophy, ethics, duties, genealogy, festivals, admin, good governance, and one very important mention that comes from Brahma Puran is about Lalita Devi. The Lalita Pakyanishad or Lalita Sahasra Nam comes from Brahmanda Puran. And another important thing that comes from Brahmanda Puran is Adhyatma Ramayana. Adhyatma Ramayana is a spiritual and philosophical Ramayana. So not many know about Adbhuta Ramayana, Adhyatma Ramayana. There is one story that I can relate to is there was after Lord Ramachandra kills the Ravana, he moves towards Saurashtra. There he meets Sahasranan Ravan, 1,000-headed Ravan, and he somehow gets defeated. So Ramachandra is lying unconscious, Lakshmana is lying unconscious. This is Adbhuta Ramayana, magical Ramayana. So certain stories of Adhyatma and Adbhuta do match. So while killing the Sahasranan Ravan, Lord Rama is unable to do it. So Sita Maya becomes Mahakali, takes incarnation as Mahakali, and kills the Ravan in a fraction of a second. And then she starts destroying the whole creation. And then Lord Brahma appears, and then she tells Lord Brahma to revive Ramachandra. And Ramachandra is in shock that who did all this destruction. So this is a version from Adbhuta Ramayana. Similarly, there are different versions of Ramayana. One of the Ramayana is Adhyatma Ramayana, which is more philosophical, which is more devotional in nature, which is found in Brahmanda Puran. So even Ramayana has got different versions. So Valmiki Ramayana, we have Adbhuta Ramayana. I just mentioned one story which was very uncommon. Then Adhyatma Ramayana we have from Brahmanda Puran. Also, you will find some traces of Ramayana in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Padma Puran, and every trace of Ramayana that you see in the Puranas, you will find some stories that are different, some interesting stories. Then we have Garud Puran. Garud Puran talks about cosmology, talks about astronomy, talks about gemology. Majorly, it talks about the Preta Kanda of Garud Puran, talks about life after death and how the journey of the soul happens. That is why it is very revered. Then we have Linga Puran. Linga Puran talks about Ardhanarishwara form, and it talks about cosmology, astronomy, geography. Similarly, we have Markandeya Puran, which is one of very larger Puranas, and It majorly, and it is the only Purana that talks about goddess and Devi as Adishakti, as I have already mentioned. Then we have Matsya and Kurma. They are smaller Puranas. They also have very a distinct mention of cosmology, cycle of birth. So content of the Puranas majorly are very similar. Just few things here and there are added. Like Matsya Puran talks about paintings and sculptures, which are different in the form they are spoken in the Agni Puran. So architecture, Vastu Shastra is part of Matsya Puran. Then Narada Puran talks about uh, summarization of all the other Puranas. It talks about uh, glories of Vishnu worship. Then we have Vishnu Puran, which again talks about, it's a shorter Puran with just 7,000 verses, and it talks about different incarnations and avatars of Vishnu. Talks about time, Varnashrama system, and other aspects of dynasties and legend of Krishna, Ramachandra, and different avatars. Then we have Vayu Puran. Vayu Puran has got different versions. Like there is 24,000 verses were there, but some have survived, and we just left with 12,000 verses. This is one version. Some have two chapters. Some have few other chapters. So Vayu Puran is a smaller Puran which talks about genealogy of gods, mythology, geography, manvantaras, yoga, shastra. Kurma Puran, although it is about it is from Kurma avatar, but Kurma Puran majorly talks about Lord Shiva. And Vamana Puran again talks about different travel guides and Sthala Puranas. Then we have Skanda Puran. Skanda Puran talks about different Tirtha Mahatmyas. It has got 7 khandas, like Maheshwara Khanda talks about Kedara. Then Vishnu Khanda talks about Tirupati, Venkateshwara, Purushottama, Jagannath Puri, and other different places of worship. And so one of the longest Purana is Skanda Puran. And then we have Bhavishya and Brahma Vaivarta. Yeah. So Bhavishya Puran talks about the future, as we've already discussed about. Uh, so Bhavishya Puran talks about future that we've already discussed. Invasion of Greeks, invasion of British. Uh, it talks about events that are going to happen in the future. And then we have Brahma Vaivarta Puran, which totally talks about devotion and to worship Radha and Krishna. It is majorly uh, equated to Radharani being the Mool Prakriti. It is in the mode of devotion again. And the impact of Puranas are feast, fast, pilgrimage, art, architecture, different pujas and festivals. Thank you very much. Now we can take questions.